Welcome everyone to arXiv's Accessibility Forum and this session with DevHub at RIT. My name is Shamsi Bryn, and I work at arXiv. I wanted to share a quick word before passing it on to Bonnie Jacob, who will be moderating this session. It has been our pleasure to work with the DevHub at RIT to bring this session to the forum. And so on behalf of arXiv, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm really excited for this session and to hear what you have to share with us. And without further delay, I will pass it on to Bonnie.
Hello, everyone. Before we formally get started today, we wanted to set a few ground rules and expectations for the session. We're focusing on making this meeting as accessible as possible for everyone involved, whether they be deaf, hearing, hard of hearing, deaf-blind. And before I say too much, I want to share my screen. Give me a moment to do that. Hopefully everyone can see the slides. All right, thank you for your patience. Your chat should be off. Some of you might be wondering why. And the reason is the chat box can often be distracting and visually noisy, especially when it comes to screen readers. The Q&A tab on the bottom is on, and you're able to use that. We would encourage you to use the Q&A throughout the session to ask any questions. And at the end of the presentation, we will try to respond to as many of those questions as possible. We're going to do something now that might feel a little odd, and I'll explain why. What we're going to do is practice what we're calling a moment of silence. And the reason that we're doing that is because if we're watching the interpreters or we're watching someone use sign language and we want to read something, it's essentially impossible to do both at the same time. Our eyes just don't do that. Hearing folks often, even myself as a hearing individual, struggle to read and listen at the same time. So what we're going to do is just pause for a few seconds and see how that feels and practice for the rest of the session. Are we ready? All right, go ahead and start. Okay, and we can stop. That may have felt awkward, but remember, if folks are watching whoever it is that's signing, whether that be the presenter or the interpreter, and trying to read, it's hard to do both. So we want to allow time for that. Now we'll go ahead and do introduction. I'll start with myself and then I'll turn it over to each member of the team here today. My name is Dr. Bonnie Jacob, and my background is math. I'm a math person. And my other job here is running a program here in Rochester, New York, called the Rochester Bridges to the Doctorate. And that is more related to my role here with all of you today. Now I'm going to ask Liz to come on screen and introduce herself. Hi, everyone. My name is Liz, and I'm a science instructor at RIT, which is Rochester Institute of Technology, and NTID, the National Technical Institute of the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. I'm also a sonographer and a clinical instructor. I'm involved with the Deaf Hub, and I actually run our mentor-supported shadowing program. I'm excited to be here with all of you today. Thank you. This is Bonnie. Next on my list is Hannah.
If you could spotlight me, please, that'd be great. Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm a graduate student in environmental science here at Rochester Institute of Technology, National Technical Institute for the Deaf. I'm part of the Bridges to the Doctorate program. I also happen to be deafblind. It's very, very exciting to present to you here today.
Thank you, Hannah. Next up, we have Dyl. Hi, everyone. My name is Dyl. My position here at the Deaf Hub is the Biomedical Science Training Administrator. Part of my job is to help our URISE and Bridges to the Doctorate research programs, both the undergraduate and graduate level. Essentially helping deaf and hard of hearing scientists become stronger PhD candidates for the program of their choice. Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Dyl. Next, Dr. McCalley.
Hello, I'm Dr. Carrie McCalley. I'm a professor in the environmental science program at the Rochester Institute of Technology, which is part of our School of Life Sciences. And I am Hannah's mentor in the Bridges to the Doctorate program.
Thank you. And last for our introductions will be Camille. Hi, everyone. My name is Camille, or I go by Cammy. Either is fine. I'm a science faculty member here at NTID, and I specialized in biology and health scientists. I'm also involved in the Deaf Hub, working specifically with the mentor-supported shadowing program, as well as the Rochester Bridges to the Doctorate program. It's wonderful to see everyone joining us today. Thank you all so much. Next, I want to ask a few questions to Hannah. But let me back up a little bit. Sorry, Hannah. I just wanted to mention a little bit more about how I know Hannah. Hannah is a Bridges student. And Hannah has shown or shared a couple photos for us to show today. I've got a few questions. And the first question, Hannah, how did you realize or figure out that you wanted to become a scientist?
So I always wanted to become a scientist. When I was a kid, I always wanted to know why and how and why does this happen? And I also love animals. So I think in second grade, it might have been first grade. I read a book about a marine biologist. This marine biologist was a woman. She was the first female marine biologist.
So inspired.
And I was so inspired by that book. I wanted to become her. So I remember in like first grade in class, the teacher was asking all of us, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to become
an
ichthyologist,
just a marine biologist,
which is a marine biologist who specializes in studying sharks.
the teacher.
And the teacher looked at me.
Okay.
Okay, Hannah. And we moved along.
Never really.
But I never really stopped wanting to become a scientist since first grade.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fascinating. I actually didn't know that story. Thank you. We're going to switch interpreters quickly.
Excellent. So for your journey, could you share a little bit more about any frustrations or challenges that you have faced so far?
Sure.
So
So I knew I wanted to become a scientist. But the problem was the world really didn't accept the concept of a deafblind person becoming a scientist. So from like high school forward, if I told people I wanted to study science and their energy was always, oh, Hannah, you're smart, you should do something else. Become a teacher for deafblind people, or maybe become a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But science, Hannah, you can't work safely in a lab as a deafblind person. And actually started college at a different university. And they refused to allow me to work in the lab. So I changed my major to psychology. And I'm no good at psychology, I will have you know. So I stopped. And then later on, I tried again. I applied to RIT. And I was shocked because I was accepted into the environmental science program here. And I thought, okay, maybe they don't realize I'm deaf-blind. But that's okay. But actually, I got here to campus. And most of the time, I felt very supported here.
There's some barriers.
I did have some barriers, some things that are hard for me,
that are not
accessible in the environment. I was the first deafblind student in many of my professors' classes. So it's a learning curve, if you will. But one thing that really helped me tremendously was my involvement with the Deaf Center, Deaf Hub, with RISE, the URISE program, URISE supports undergraduate deaf and hard of hearing students who want to become scientists in the future. With them, I had the opportunity to be involved in research. I had the opportunity to work one-on-one with a mentor. It was a really great experience. I started being able to go to conferences and present my research. I started to feel like a scientist. And that was really, that helped me gain confidence in myself and my abilities. And then when I applied for the master's program, I then switched to the Bridges program. And that's where I currently am working.
Barriers, I think just
Other barriers, I think just being the first deafblind person, sometimes that means that I need to do a lot of education, or I have to do a lot of advocacy for myself. That can be an extra amount of labor that I have to do. But at the same time, I have a lot of support. I work with the Deaf Hub and feel very supported.
Wow, Hannah, that's excellent. You know, your comment talking about I planned on asking about barriers and how you really adjusted or overcame, but I love your approach and your explanation about barriers, yet at the same time, how you overcame them. So thank you so much for sharing. One more follow-up question about that. You had talked about and mentioned that you were the first. How did you handle that? You know, you said the additional burden of educating and teaching others. How did you manage that?
sometimes not great.
Sometimes I didn't manage it very well. I try, but I do own the fact that sometimes I lose patience. But yeah, I think I've realized that there's always going to be a first, right? Someone has to be first. So, okay, that's my role this time. I really want to become a scientist. And if I allow those barriers to stop me from reaching that goal, I will become a scientist. So I think for me, having that goal in mind, that bigger picture in mind, really helps me. Also, I will say that I love my research, and that helps so much. So my research focuses on permafrost thaw and methane emissions. And I get to go to northern Sweden for a month every year and conduct my research. I work out in the field. It's a fantastic experience. And the pictures on the slide are from that past summer's experience.
And
I have a lot of support as well. The Deaf Hub really helped me advocate for myself, for interpreters to travel with me to Sweden. My mentor, Dr. McCalley, is fantastic.
When
we didn't have interpreters one time, she tried very hard to learn to count in ASL. She just was so willing to work with me and make an effort. She wasn't scared to try, and she wasn't afraid of me as a deafblind person. She accepted who I am, and she worked with me. I feel like generally that's my experience here at RIT. It's not perfect, no, but it really has been good. And it's always improving.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. One more question for you, Hannah. there's a term I've heard sometimes, and to be real honest with you, I don't fully understand it. I've heard about deaf gain or deaf blind gain. Could you maybe explain that term to me? How does that work? What is deaf gain or deaf blind gain?
Yeah, okay. So
gain
deaf gain or deaf blind gain, or blind gain for that matter,
having
is
experience of
when
being
having
able-
an experience of being deaf
Actually
or
helps
blind or deaf
better
blind
to-
actually helps people be better at things. So for example,
I
I sometimes work with soils. And one of the things that we do with that soil
is tried
is try to identify,
like
it's like,
if it's sandy.
if it's sandy soil, or if it's loamy, or if it's salt.
whole process to
There's a
decide
whole process to figure out what characters or properties soil has. But a lot of that is tactile.
I'm really good at that.
I am really good at that because I read Braille. So I'm very used to feeling things and gaining information. I'm very good at being precise by touching things.
better.
So in a way, I'm a little bit better than my colleagues and my peers because they can see the soil, but their sense of touch isn't informative or isn't as informed as mine is. You can't identify it via vision. So that would be an example of deafblind gain. Another example would be, let's see. Okay, I've got a good one.
In the field,
Out in the field this past summer,
I work in bogs.
I work in bogs and fens.
In that
And
is not-
walking in that is not always easy. Sometimes when you're walking on grass, and sometimes it's floating on top of water,
you can't see that.
and you can't see that.
Or
So for sighted people, they rely on their feet and their vision, and they step into a
this
hole.
amazing.
I have this amazing thing called a cane.
I feel
And I can feel first with the cane and know, ooh, I'm not going to step there because I'm going to go knee deep in some water. So I will step in another direction. So that's another example of deafblind gain out in the field.
It's a great example. Thanks, Hannah. Hannah, thanks so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Now we have time for a 5-minute pause or break. Yes. So we will be back at 12:35. Really? That's more than 5 minutes, but I will see you at 12:35. So we will just take a quick break and reset. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So up until this point, we've talked about DefHub, but we haven't necessarily explained to you what that is. I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to explain about the DefHub for you. Cami, do you mind turning on your camera and starting us off? I'll give you a minute to read this slide first. You see at the top, we have Deaf Healthcare and Biomedical Science Hub. We have a long name, but we typically refer to ourselves as the Deaf Hub. We were established in 2022 because we recognize that many deaf and hard of hearing folks are not in healthcare and not in biomedical sciences. We want to help build pathways and journeys for those folks to be able to succeed within both the healthcare and biomedical sciences fields. We also want to build a community for our deaf scientists here in Rochester. And we chose Rochester, New York, because if you look at the map on the bottom, you see New England, and then you see Rochester's bolded in the middle. And Rochester has a rich deaf community of all ages, and our program is here to really target three main groups: middle and high school students, undergraduate and graduate students, and postdocs early in their career. Next slide, please. Again, I'll give you a moment to read this slide over. We in Deaf Hub have many different acronyms, as seen here on the slide. The orange at the top says RIT, and we are part of the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. Again, the NTID Deaf Healthcare and Biomedical Sciences Hub. Then you see academia, and there's 5 programs listed there. All 3 of the groups really fit into academia. First is our Healthcare Careers Exploration Program, HCCEP. That program is designed for deaf high school students who are interested in careers in the healthcare field. They come to our campus and we have a variety of experiences for them, including practicing sutures, becoming certified in CPR, and other programs. Below that, you see our mentor-supported shadowing program, MSSP. Our undergraduate students here on campus are able to get experience shadowing deaf healthcare professionals all around the nation. Next, we have our undergraduate research training initiative for scientific enhancement. That acronym is URISE. That's another undergraduate program specifically for students who want to go on for a PhD in biomedical sciences. They take a research ethics course, they're assigned a mentor, and a variety of other things. Even, for example, they go to conferences and give presentations. Below that, we have Rochester Bridges to the Doctorate. And that program we call Bridges. The Bridges program is for students who are now in master's degree programs who want to get a doctorate degree. We support them to prepare for their application for their graduate studies. And finally, at the top, we have the Rochester Postdoc Partnership, RPP. Our deaf and hard of hearing scientists who have gotten their doctorates aren't done with us yet. We continue to support them early in their careers for their career development. They're able to get additional research experience as postdocs and also get teaching experience as well. Those are our 5 programs related to academia. Below, we have research, and there's 4, 3 labs and 1 summer program for a total of 4. The labs are our Deaf Health Laboratory, DHL, And the Deaf Health Lab focuses on different instances that impact the deaf community and how we can increase deaf and hard of hearing folks' literacy, medical literacy specifically. Next, we have REACH, Research and Education on Accessible Communication in Healthcare. That lab is actually run by an interpreter who is specialized in medical interpreting, and she's researching how interpreters are able to improve the services that they're offering to deaf and hard of hearing patients. Then we have our XR Accessibility Solutions Lab, XR ASL. That lab is cool because they're working on smart glasses that are able to take in auditory information and either translate it into captioning or sign language. And then last is our summer program. The summer program is called Summer Healthcare Academic Research Program, otherwise known as SHARP. The SHARP program is for undergraduate students who want to get experience related to deaf healthcare research. We'll actually be showing you a video later in this presentation, and you can see more of what that's like. We're presenting these programs for you today because all of these can have folks like all of you from different universities, campuses, and we want to be able to support you in supporting your deaf, deafblind, deaf disabled, hard of hearing scientists in their success within both healthcare and biomedical sciences. If you're interested in learning more about any or all of our individual programs, we will have time during the Q&A that we can expand on those, or there's a lot of information posted on our website as well. Thank you.
Right, so I'm going to share a little bit about my experience being Hannah's mentor as part of the URISE and Bridges program. I was one of those professors who found out probably a week before classes started that I was going to have a deaf-blind student in my environmental science lab. And I was a little intimidated. I wasn't quite sure how that was going to work. And then I met Hannah, and I knew it was going to be just fine, and that she was not a student I was going to have to worry about being successful in my class. And sure enough, she was super successful, did a great job. And what was really obvious was she was really excited about science and doing research, which meant I was really excited to know that there were these programs like URISE and Bridges that would give her the opportunity to do that research, and that I might be able to have her as a student in my lab. And sure enough, she did start doing research with me. And URISE and Bridges has really given me the opportunity to work with a student who really wants to do research, who loves my research site in Sweden as much as I do, and really enjoys traveling to the Arctic to study science. And I think students don't always realize that that's not something professors always get to work with. Some students have other reasons why they're getting involved in research. So I'm really thankful for URISE and Bridges for giving me the opportunity to work with a student who was a really great student and who's really excited about science. And I'm also really grateful that they have all these resources that have helped us navigate some of the accessibility challenges, particularly for doing research in another country for a long period of time. We did try to make it work one summer without a lot of support, and it was not easy, and it didn't work out all that well. And then Bridges and URISE and Deaf Hub has really helped advocate for and get resources for Hannah so that we could communicate better. And those aren't skills that I really have. So knowing that Hannah has access to these resources has been really helpful, and has let me really focus on what I do better, which is focus on the science and mentoring Hannah as a scientist. I think another thing that was really beneficial in my experience working with URISE and Bridges is just how flexible they were in letting Hannah do the research that she gets really excited about. Hannah's project is a little different than what I think most Bridges students focus on in their projects. And Bridges has been really great about supporting her research with me, which is maybe not quite so closely tied to biomedical science, but again, everything about the environment ultimately affects people. And another thing that is part of the Bridges program is that Hannah does lab rotations, not only in my lab, but also in labs at University of Rochester. And what that means is she's bringing in new expertise to my research group by collaborating with scientists over at the University of Rochester. So I'm really excited about that new knowledge that is coming between my lab, University of Rochester, and how that collaboration could help mentor more students. And also having Hannah as part of my lab is, I think, made for really great experiences for other students. We had a bunch of undergraduate researchers in my lab this summer, and they got to work with Hannah, and they were very sad when she went to Sweden to work on her own research because she was such a great mentor. And I think that provided this really great opportunity for students who aren't from places where they get to work with a lot of deaf students or deaf-blind students to have a mentor who was deaf-blind. I think was a really great experience, and I think really added to their summer learning. And they were very impressed with Hannah and her knowledge of birds and the environment, even things that had nothing to do with her primary research focus. I think those are my main points. We want to move to the next set.
Mrs. Bonnie, thank you. That was great. Thank you all so much. I do want to mention or remind folks that we have resources available on the page for this session. Feel free to reach out to any of us here at RIT within the Deaf Hub. Our website is on the session page you can access. I believe I'm going to turn things back over to Dyl for the next part. This is Dyl. Now we're going to focus on the Deaf Hub in action. This slide is some examples of things that we do throughout the academic school year, while also encouraging folks to have both internal and external research experience within our SHARP, our URISE, and our Bridges program. We do have the Deaf Hub Explores Perspectives. We offer that about 6 times a year, where we invite current deaf and hard of hearing PhD candidates or folks with doctorates to come and explain their journey to our students, to talk about how they got to where they are today. We also do some professional development sessions, working on both soft and hard research skills within the deaf and hard of hearing trainee programs. Again, some of those are more focused on the master's and doctorate level, and others are focused in general on our deaf and hard of hearing scientists, but folks who are within both of those realms. We also have our deaf scientist time. Those are offered typically on Zoom, and they save space for all of our deaf and hard of hearing scientists to get together at one time in a safe space where they can talk about challenges that they're faced with and different things that they are experiencing now or that they have experienced in the past. We also invite some of our RPP, as Cami just mentioned, the Rochester doctorate, the RRP program. They're invited to come and talk to us about their experience and how they got through in their programs and what sorts of advice they can offer to our current students. We also have a variety of poster sessions and presentations within different areas, both here in Rochester on campus and in other areas. We're actually going to Pittsburgh this coming November. Within our SHARP program, those students have some research assistance programs, and they're able to do just 1 or 2 minute presentations before they then have to do a formal poster presentation. Next up, we're going to show a video. And this is a couple minutes long. We're just going to show a clip of it. I'll let Bonnie get everything situated and get the captions, and then we will go ahead and show that video.
I think Sharp helps RAs build their experience and get a taste for what it's like to do research. Most of us came in with no experience, but Sharp taught us how to be a research assistant, and it ties in with our major. I think Sharp helps RAs build their experience and get a taste for what it's like to do research. Most of us came in with no experience, but Sharp taught us how to be a research assistant, and it ties in with our major. First is that I really enjoyed learning how to lead a research study interview. The second thing was the all hands meetings. It was good to share different perspectives with diverse people. For example, both RAs and staff have different experiences, different perspectives. I learned a lot, for example, about the LGBTQ community, diversity, different experiences of people with and without privileges. It was a really good experience. First week, I sat down with my mentor, Liz, and we kind of discussed the different routes we could go with this project. She mentioned that it had to have something to do with healthcare because that's what the Deaf Hub is about. But she asked me about my interests, and I have a big passion for user interface design. I love creating prototypes. So we combined those, and that's how the research project came to be. And talking to my other peers that are actively in the Sharp program now, it's pretty evident to me that they are also very passionate about their own projects. So I hope to see that continue, and I hope to continue to see the mentors supporting their mentees.
Okay, I was just waiting for Bonnie. I didn't know if you wanted to introduce the next video or if you wanted to talk about the mentor supported shadowing. I'm sorry, Liz. Go ahead, you're fine. Could we just wait until she's spotlit? Thank you. Great. Okay, so our next video is going to show you what a shadowing experience looks like. We pair deaf and hard of hearing students with a deaf or hard of hearing healthcare professional who is practicing in that given field of interest. It's really cool because there's more accessibility for that student to be able to view that professional using different strategies in the field for communication, for example, that will then apply to that student who is deaf, just like this professional. And it's very different than shadowing with a hearing individual who might be talking on the phone. That's something as a deaf person, I won't be able to do when I graduate. So what will I do? So seeing that modeled is excellent. I hope you enjoy this video.
I knew I wanted to be involved in healthcare. I knew since I was little, I wanted to be a nurse. So with the MSSP, I wanted to meet deaf healthcare professionals to see how they approach interpreters and hearing patients and communication with colleagues. I feel better about interacting with a variety of patients and am more confident in myself and my deaf identity. I don't have to be worried about how to contact or communicate with a mentor or ask for guidance on each thing. I know that I can make decisions and do things for myself. The person I shadowed is Nicole. She works as a nurse for pediatric endocrinology, specifically diabetes, here at Strong Hospital in Rochester, New York. I learned from Nicole how she interacts with interpreters and patients as a deaf person, which gave me a better idea for myself how I could work with interpreters and patients in healthcare.
This is my first unit. I'm going to be a floating ambulatory tech. I think right now it's helping me make decisions and feel more confident in myself working in this position in healthcare, and hopefully will help me as I continue to get experiences to see what kind of work I want to do next. I haven't decided if that's nursing or if it's another healthcare role. I'm very excited to try different things. I really enjoyed the experience. For me, when I became a nurse, I didn't have any deaf preceptors or mentors, so I had to figure out everything for myself as I went along. There were a lot of frustrations and a lot of struggles. To see a trainee who is interested in becoming a healthcare professional, I really saw an opportunity to support and educate, to show what I did that worked, that would hopefully match their needs and experience. I really enjoyed chatting with Barbara about the future of deaf and hard of hearing folks in healthcare. We're going to line it up with the patient. And you're going to do it at a 30-degree angle until you see blood. Once you see blood, you're going to move it down almost exactly parallel to the location, and then you're going to insert the catheter. My advice for RIT and TID students who aren't sure if they want to be a part of the MSSP program, that's something that I felt before also. I wasn't sure because I didn't know what I wanted to do and didn't know what the healthcare world looked like, especially between deaf practitioners and hearing folks. I really encourage you to take that step and be involved, because that way you get to see how deaf professionals work with hearing people and interpreters in the healthcare environment. And when you come back, you're going to have more confidence and you're going to be more excited and motivated for a future in the healthcare field. MSSP is important because it is an amazing place that opens a door to opportunities that you can't have anywhere else. It's a great opportunity for me to be a part of.
Pretty cool, right? And again, oops, hold on one second. There we go. This is so cool. Your program or your location, you can reach out and develop a network of professionals and those who you can collaborate with. We can develop allies and so forth. You can do the same concept where you are. The next area we're going to talk about is just to show a very few examples of how deaf and hard of hearing healthcare folks access clinical training and practicum. Some things require sound, like heart, stethoscopes, AED devices. So I want to show you some things. Here on the top left is an image of an AED device, which is a heart rescue device. Most of those that you see have verbal commands and verbal prompts telling an individual who might not know how to use it what to do when. Those of us who are unable to hear the prompts would not be able to use this. This model has a visual screen with visual prompts that will then tell the person what to do next in terms of an emergency rescue. So seeing this is definitely universally beneficial for folks. The middle picture is a stethoscope. And it's used by deaf professionals with the heart rhythms they can see on a screen. So it can connect to their hearing aids or cochlear implants through the Bluetooth technology. And then last on the top right, we have an image of a blood pressure cuff, and it's digital. So then it will send the information to a smartphone or other smart device to upload the blood pressure, vitals, and information. So you don't have to hear or rely on the sound or tone. On the bottom, you can see a series of clear masks. This is an example of deaf gain, being able to see clearly the mouth and lips to see people's expression, whether they're smiling or frowning, that benefits everyone. This really helps not only deaf and hard of hearing individuals, this helps everyone in the medical environment. So these are just a few examples of accessible healthcare technologies. Okay, back to you. One second. Okay. Could we spotlight Dyl, please? Thank you. This is Dyl here. Thank you. Perfect. Great. Hello again. There are a few things that really help make a more inclusive environment. These are some tips and facts that our mentoring staff, as well as our research lab and communication accessibility team, have developed. One semester we met during training, the PI and personal team and environment. We developed this, and it's really to help accessibility be achieved. The first thing is to remember that everyone is important, everyone is different, and to ask each individual about their communication preferences and needs. This really shows respect, and because of everybody's different communication needs, that really helps to show. There are some standard accommodations such as captioning or interpreting that could be universally helpful, printing things out for those who may have vision needs. And it's just important to ask each individual what it is that they could best use. Inclusive communication, such as Slack or whiteboards, email, having high contrast visual aids, for example. This right here, this color of my shirt is not a high contrast skin tone compared to my skin tone. It would be better to have something that was darker to be able to see things better. Also having more visual environment, such as maps in the lab, labeling things with labeled drawers and shelves, and also possibly taking mental health first aid certification. You can Google that. There are some great tools to help people deal with one-on-one mental health things. Great, thank you. I'm going to turn it back to Hannah for the last slide.
Hello, everyone.
I didn't realize.
So I actually didn't realize that I was assigned to this side, but that's okay. We're gonna make it work. Okay.
Yep.
Some
Working
tips for
with
working with interpreters and captionists. And generally, when you're working with a diverse group of individuals, it's important to keep these in mind. Prior to the meeting, make sure that you're asking people about their accommodation needs. For example, if people are going to need an interpreter or a captionist, it does take time to reserve those services. For blind individuals for the meeting, oftentimes you'll want to have the PowerPoint slides sent to them in advance. That way, the person can gain access to that information prior to the meeting's beginning.
You can't use a screen.
You can't use a screen reader with a shared screen. So keep that in mind. Secondly, if a meeting is happening, encourage people to take turns speaking or signing. One at a time is best. Be aware of how quickly you're speaking and give the interpreter time to catch up if necessary. Also, provide time for people to read the slides if they are cited. Nobody can look at two different things at the same time. It's impossible. After the meeting is over, it's often helpful to check in with those people who attended the meeting and ask them their experience. If the accommodations worked for them, if something needs to be adjusted for future meetings. Try to review those suggestions for future meetings and adjust as necessary.
And back to you. Great, thank you so much. Now we have time for a few questions, so I'm going to move on to Q&A. One question talks about what percentage of or total population in the maybe US, I'm not sure what exactly is the meaning, who have benefited from the support of our team, I think meaning the Deaf Hub. How many people do you estimate potentially that we've helped so far? Does Dyl or Liz or Cammy or anyone have any, or Hannah, want to address this? Dyl? Well, hi. That is actually, well, first of all, this is Camille speaking. That is actually a great question and very difficult to assign any metrics to how many people we've served. We have served a great number of students. Last year, we accepted our first full cohort for the mentorship support shadowing program. We had 4 students in that first group, which was really exciting for that. I guess maybe last summer, we also submitted another 3 students. We sent them to different locations across the United States. So that was also a fantastic experience. We have specific numbers related to publications and presentations that I believe Dyl has those numbers. Dyl, did you want to share that? Possibly. But again, it's really impossible to measure our impact. It's about the quality of what it is we're doing and the impact it has on the people's lives who we're working with than in terms of the number of people. So I'm going to look at the Q&A and I see a question from Mark there. So I'd like to go ahead and sign the question. I understand that new signs are created for specialized scientific terminology. I also understand that there are online video dictionaries like aslcore.org. Can you describe how new signs are created for advanced fields? And would sign language speakers create and share custom videos of signs in personal collections, sort of like taking their own personal notes? Hannah, would you like to respond to that question?
Sure. Just waiting for the spotlight. Okay. Yeah. So I create new signs for my field of research all the time. Reason being, there are no other deaf people studying Arctic permafrost. So that means we don't really have a sign vocabulary set for that field. So how do I create a sign? Sign language is a concept-based language, a visual language. So that means normal signs, sometimes signs sort of borrow the concept. So for permafrost, continually frozen. There you go. So I try to make sure that I build off of the concept and signs that people already know. And I just add to that to make it much more clear and visually accessible.
No.
We do have
Um,
several sign dictionaries
or
for STEM fields.
comment.
Atomic Hands is one. ASL Core is another resource. And there are a few others as
I
well.
think that technically,
I think typically people do share signs that they've developed on those two
another
and a few other
share-
resources. Another way to share your signs would be
share research.
share your research itself through vlogs.
And that's
So that means you're making a video of you using sign language and talking about your research.
both two things.
So it accomplishes two things at the same time. It's much more accessible for deaf people who may not have good written English reading and writing skills. Secondly, it communicates signs
Ways of signing.
in new ways of signing concepts that are very specific in STEM fields.
Hannah, we have one more question for you specifically in our question and answer. It's regarding autonomy issues. Do you have any assistance when you're out in the field or people who work with you for accessibility? Whether it's in the lab or in the field, how do you feel about that and maintaining your autonomy as someone, as maybe potentially needing someone's help?
Yeah,
I do have support.
I do have support when I'm out in the field doing research. Normally there are interpreters there with me.
There's
My
support.
interpreters also provide some CN, which means co-navigator support. So some visual explanation of what's going on around me. There's some guidance they provide if necessary. Now I have a guide dog.
Really?
So really most of my out in the field work, I'm very independent. I can go to places alone. I can collect data and samples on my own because of my guide dog. And I try to use technology as well in my work. So OCR, other things like that. That makes various equipment accessible to me. But I do understand, I understand that question about autonomy. I think sometimes people assume that because I have interpreters with me, the interpreters are doing the work. And I'm just, I don't know, standing there. I don't know what they think. I feel like the more people who work with me, the more they realize, no. The interpreter's just there for language communication and access. I'm the scientist. But I have had some experiences, particularly at conferences, where people say some very inappropriate things. I've definitely had people say to my interpreter when they come up to us,
it's so nice.
it's so nice that you're here for them. That you're allowing her to be here and network. It's like the interpreter isn't there and isn't going to interpret what they just said to me. So I think, oh, hold on. Something just popped up on my screen.
Yeah, so I think part of
I think that part of being autonomous is working with people
realizing that
and realizing that no science is truly autonomous. I work with many people who never go out in the field. They never collect samples.
they're not blind.
They're not blind. They're not deaf. They're not deaf-blind. They're able-bodied,
Just not.
but that's just not their thing. That's not the part of science that they do. They do the computational work or the statistical work or the lab work. So I feel like all of science is collaboration. It's not independent. So it's important to remember and realize that maybe a blind scientist isn't doing one thing, but they're really good at all of these other things. And there's no difference in how they benefit the field than a sighted person.
Switching interpreters.
Thank you. Another question that we got was about the network of deaf healthcare providers around the nation for folks to provide those shadowing opportunities. I wonder if Liz could answer that. Hi, this is Liz. The process was slow. At first, we started by just reaching out to folks that were known, to develop our personal networks, to ask other folks who else they know. From there, we were able to set up a database. Every event, every publication of newsletters, every flyer, we would add a QR code at the bottom. That QR code would help us gather additional signups to get some more folks in our network. We also have flyers within a 2-hospital system to both recruit internally and recruit internally at the other. So now within that 2-hospital system and within the database, we have probably over 50 providers who are willing and able to take on mentoring and shadowing opportunities. And those 50 folks are from 17 states. We're obviously still looking to grow that network. And if you know of anyone, please send them our way. Every little bit helps. I think we have time for one more question today. And this question says, I never knew about these kinds of opportunities for deaf and hard of hearing people. Does anyone know of similar programs in the tech or law disciplines? Cammy, maybe you have an answer? Yeah, that's a great question. I myself, and actually within the chat of panelists, we've been reaching out to one another, and we don't know of other similar programs in either of those disciplines. There was mention of cybersecurity, and unfortunately, we don't have a big network. We're hoping, though, that our work within the Deaf Hub is going to be able to enable other universities or other programs to utilize the same foundation to then build their own programs in the future. Something related to law would be very exciting, absolutely. It really, just to throw it out, though, RIT does have a great cybersecurity program. So if you're interested in that, keep us in mind. Thank you, Cami. I didn't want to advertise our program here at RIT too much, but we also do have a lot of partnerships when it comes to the deaf community and the hearing community here on campus in every discipline, really. Just about 2 days ago, I actually got an email from someone who's in engineering, and they wanted to essentially copy our Bridges program for the engineering field. There definitely are a lot of opportunities and things to come. Our time is nearing the end. I would like to ask all of our panelists if they have any final comments. I don't have a specific order. Maybe we can start with Liz. Yeah, I think about how rich the quality of life can be when you interact with a diverse group of people and learn how to make the environment around you accessible and inclusive for everyone. Anna, do you have any final comments?
Yeah,
Other students.
for other students or people with disabilities, don't allow other people to tell you what you can and cannot do.
Really want to.
If you really want to do something, if you're passionate about your major or a future career or something just random in your life that you want to do, don't allow other people to tell you that you can't do that just because you have a disability.
Yeah, at the same time.
At the same time, we have to recognize that it might be more work and you have to accept that, but really chase your dream. Go for it.
Dyl? All right. Hi again, everyone. I have a little fun fact to share. I know it's been mentioned, but the Deaf Hub was established in 2022. We've had 17 presentations, 4 awards, 16 publications, all from a variety of folks that we collaborate with. And we advocate to bring in folks of different backgrounds. When in doubt, ask, be very direct when it comes to your intention, and show that you're there to help. Have the difficult conversations, because from those difficult conversations comes a positive outcome. Thank you all for coming today. Carrie?
So I'll follow up on what Hannah said, but from the mentor professor perspective is don't make assumptions about what a student can and can't do. Let them tell you what they can do and then be flexible to help come up with solutions so that they can be successful, but don't ever assume that they can't do something just because of their disability.
And Cami? I love that. Deaf, hard of hearing, deaf-blind, deaf-disabled can. Whether you're deaf, deaf-blind, deaf-disabled, folks have done it. And deaf, deaf-blind, deaf-disabled folks not only have, but they will continue to do it. Keep in mind, deaf, deafblind, deaf, disabled folks, yes, have to work harder than their hearing peers, their hearing sighted, non-disabled peers. And how can you advocate and become allies for us? Think about different ways that you can reduce that burden. You can reduce that added work that deaf, deafblind, and deaf disabled folks have. Together, we can work together. Wow, those were all beautiful comments. And I honestly learned a lot today myself. I do want to thank our interpreters as well as our panelists today and the organizers from the event. Thank you, arXiv. I think we'll now turn it back over to arXiv and we can end things with Shamsi.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say on behalf of arXiv how grateful we are for all the time that the Deaf Hub has put into this presentation. And we just are so excited that we were able to bring this session to the forum. I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending and all the assistants working in the background. And thank you so much for all the panelists.